Hey guys, how's it peeping? It's your boy, the Budget Asian Critical here. So initially, I was planning to just sit on the sidelines of this situation because at the very least now in the short term, there's still a lot of conflicting and missing information, and there's also a lot of rumors spreading around about the entire situation. So there's a lot of information to pass through and verify before coming to a concrete conclusion on where everything is at. However, looking through all of the stuff that seems to be going around on social media right now, it does feel like there has been a lot more information that has become more and more solidified and concrete over time. But at the same time, there seems to be still a misunderstanding of the situation at hand, not just in the wider community, but even within the Blue Archive community itself, as to what exactly is going on here. And so I figured now would be as good a time as any to talk about what is going on with this situation as far as we can. Let me just say this now at the start of the video, since I feel like this is a point that needs to be made just in case. Especially since in this case, neither of the major parties have come out and made a statement about all of this, but do not go and harass any of the people brought up in this video. They very well may have reasons for doing the things that they did. We do not know yet, as no one has spoken out themselves. All of this is basically from data that people have dug up about the situation at hand. You know, don't harass anyone mentioning this. That said, I'm not here to tell you what to think about this situation. I'm just really here to show you guys what information is so far being presented out there, because a lot of it now is being compiled into a text document, which to the guy who actually compiled all of that information, I love you, mate.
I appreciate that.
For making it a lot easier to read through and verify all of the information. But at the same time, we live in 2024. The TikTok brain rot Subway Surfers issue has become so bad that frankly, I don't know how many people are even gonna read the document. And so I figured let's talk about it, what was written in the document to some extent, so that for people who are more interested in this situation, you can go and give it a read. So I'm going to focus on talking about this from as objective a point as possible. I may have my own opinions, but we'll keep those out of this video for now. And I'm doing this so that people from outside the community who have not much of an understanding of what is currently happening can also get a better grasp of why the community is mad. Because a lot of what I see in terms of the counterpoint for all of the people who are kind of angry with the situation is just, bruh, you know, both games can just coexist together. You do know that, right? Like, this is your standard, you know, game drama where everybody has fallen into this weird tribalism thing where everybody somehow needs to have their thing be the only thing of its type. You know, kind of like with the whole Wuthering Waves and Genshin thing initially, where you just have that fringe part of the community that was just being super toxic about it. But the thing is that there is a very large difference with the whole thing going on right now with Project KV. And this is due to the fact that this current title that is not at all linked, once again, this has no link in universe or out to Blue Archive, is actually being made by many of the ex-developers of the original Blue Archive itself. Which, looking at the situation surrounding how these people left the company, which seemed quite unceremonious looking at the information that exists out there, as well as all of the information that is surrounding what has been going on in terms of the progress of Project KV since they left. It feels like there's a very important point that needs to be addressed here. But for those of you who didn't know, Project KV is being developed by some of the ex-staff for Blue Archive. This includes some of its key members such as the JP site director, Isaac, the writer, Sakusan, as well as the former art director, Huang Sang. I may have butchered some of these names, I do apologize. My name is also you know, my name is also really silly and I've had many people mispronounce it as well. But you have to understand that I haven't been getting really very much, you know, anging action recently. So it is a little out of practice and I need a little time to get back into it, maybe a few years because my brain seems to be damaged. But moving on from that, this initially led to some people believing that this was some kind of publicity stunt or this was supposed to be some in or out universe related thing to Blue Archive itself, but it would seem that the current producer of the game, the guy who has been the producer for quite a long while, has actually gone around retweeting some of the tweets put out by some of the bigger influencers within the whole like Blue Archive space who are saying that these two titles are not related, and so it is quite likely the case that this and Blue Archive are meant to not be related whatsoever. You know, were this to be just the end of it, this would have been quite a nothing burger, right? This actually could have just been something that happened as a result of some creative differences that existed between the two teams. They could have just gone their merry ways, and they could have just made competing games that could have helped to further improve both titles, kind of like we were all living in a fucking shonen manga or something.
And that's why friendship is the best thing ever.
So some information went up on an app called Blind. No, this is not an app for blind people, which in and of itself feels like it would be kind of very pointless if it were, unless they found a way to somehow superheat your phone such that you could basically do Braille on it. But no, this is basically an app that is largely used, it would seem, more in Korea, which basically allows people working in specific industries and companies to post anonymously, except that they have their company or industry tied to their name. And supposedly, according to the people who run the app, they actually do verify the workplace email addresses of the people who sign up on the application to ensure that they are actually working where they say they do. Though, yeah, as a result of this, people tend to treat this as a bit more of a slightly more credible source of rumors, because typically it does come from inside the company, but at the same time, the app itself is closed source, so we don't exactly know how they vet all of this information, so treat it with a grain of salt, if you will. But according to the information posted on there by members of Nexon Games, as well as information corroborated within the financial reports of Nexon itself, it would seem that many of the people who did leave the team were some of the highest compensated members in the team, with members such as Isaka-san as well as Isaac actually being paid more than the actual producer of the game himself. Now, obviously, if I just say like, oh, it is higher, it is quite a relative term, right? The guy with $1 is a lot richer than the guy with no dollar, but that doesn't actually make him rich. So we should actually look at the raw numbers and try to get a better understanding of how much they're actually earning. The chart that was in the financial reports put out by Nexon would look kind of like this. Now, the numbers here look very big already. Yeah, you know, many of us wish we could earn this amount of money every single year. But the important thing with this table that you see over here is the fact that in the top right, it actually states that this is in the thousands of won. So the lowest denominator that is not included in is the 1,000. So you basically need to take this number, multiply it by 1,000. And if you were to convert this into dollar, it will look something like this. Oh shit, I'm actually working in the wrong company, huh? Hey, I wonder if I can actually just like start moving to like Korea right now or something. The reason why I'm bringing this number up is because of the fact that according to some of the information put out there by people who were supposedly verified members of Nexon Games, it would seem that just before they left, many of these top level people within the company were actually going around and trying to instigate allegedly some level of conflict by basically telling people within the team that the amount of incentive bonuses they were getting just wasn't enough. This is basically coming from the people who earn the greatest amount of incentive bonus in the company. I actually earn less in a year than these guys earn in their like incentive bonus. So yeah, there is already something really strange going on within this entire situation. If this information provided is actually true, then it would seem that they were trying to incite some level of conflict of a situation which technically wasn't actually true at the point. And to make matters worse for people who actually played Blue Archive in the past year, there have been many that have been complaining about a degradation in the quality of some of the content within the game. And it is content that can be tied back exactly to these same people who then left Blue Archive to set up Project KV. Things like how the latest arc of the story written by Isaka-san himself apparently has many plot holes, and it actually puts many of the characters that people really loved in a very bad light, using plot points that didn't really make sense. How some of the art done by the art director as well as some of the other artists who left with them apparently looked a lot worse in-game than it did in Project KV. Plus the direction of the game, which, you know, the thing that the guy with the word direct in his name is supposed to be in charge of, apparently it actually pulled in a more pay-to-win direction, wherein you actually had a lot more limited characters being released, so basically things that would FOMO you into potentially having to spend on the gacha. Content that was a lot more grindy while also simultaneously not being all that entertaining and being recycled quite a fair bit. All this while the producer himself was going on into talks talking about how he actually wanted to push the game in the opposite, more player-friendly direction. it kind of shows that these people were actively working in a way that was actually putting the game in a worse state than it had been about a year back even. Because like for those of you who do not know anything about the game's history, hey, I actually made a video about that. It's really long, but if you're interested in that, you can kind of go watch that as well, wherein you can see that the game actually grew a lot with its original more friendly systems, and for some reason they decided that in spite of the fact that the game was growing well, these people wanted to pull it in a direction that might actually drive people away instead. And on top of all the things that we have talked about, all of these issues that apparently cropped up, there's also the fact that Project KV was actually announced 3 months after they left the company, which for those of you who don't really do game development and are wondering like, what's the big deal with 3 months? 3 months is a really short time to actually be coming up with just the entire full concept for the entire game in the way that they did. Because remember, within 3 months, not only would they have had to come up with the entire concept of the game, but they also would have to get all of the concept art done, the setting of the world done, the super hypercut trailer that they had on YouTube done, all of this, which is really short, especially for a mobile gacha game title, which I know some people are talking about how it might be a light novel or a visual novel. So far, the company is actually registered as a live service provision company, so while they might actually release a visual novel at some point, we don't know, they are most likely going to be going in the gacha game direction as well, it would seem. Which, for those of you who didn't know, the gacha game industry in both Japan and Korea nowadays, it's in a very super hyper saturated state. You would have an easier time trying to convince a Japanese salaryman that he need to report his company for all of the overly horrible work conditions they put him through than you would have trying to make a mobile game successful in these countries nowadays. Not unless you had a very big budget and a lot of time to prepare a game that would have both the visual as well as the in-game quality needed to push to market something that is very massive. But considering the speed at which they got all of this out, as well as all of the degradation and quality of the content they were producing in Blue Archive at the time, there are multiple conclusions that could be come to at this point that many people out there are currently of the belief of. One is that they were sacrificing the quality of the content in Blue Archive so they could simultaneously work on Project KV. Two is that they were intentionally and maliciously doing all of this with the hopes of harming the project so that when they do release their own title, they would have an easier time competing. Or three, they were just in over their head because of the fact that many of them were still, this level of success that they had with Blue Archive was not something that they had experienced before, and maybe they just really didn't know how to deal with it. That's also a possibility. Or four, it could just be all of the above. But, right, since there isn't all information out there right now, we don't have any damning evidence from anyone who has just come out and just shown all of it with their name and their company tied to all of this yet. Okram's Razor, right? We don't attribute to malice first what might be possible to just attribute to incompetence instead. So maybe let's start this argument off by, let's say, looking at it from the possibility that they were just people who were in over their head and weren't able to deal with the success that they had managed to achieve because the scale of the game had basically gone beyond what they may have experienced in. And it is true that for Isaka-san, for example, prior to his writing in Blue Archive, especially in Korea, he used to be thought of as a hack writer. He was someone who used to write stuff that people considered to be more on the mid side. And it was with Blue Archive where he had his first major hit, if anything. And when you consider that, it's yeah, okay, maybe we could say that these people were in over their head, and that's why the quality dropped. But when we start to look at the rest of the information that has been coming out so far, it would seem that it may not just be incompetence. So first off, the use of the halo in the game, I know it is something that there has been a lot of argument over. There are people who say that use of halo, therefore copy, therefore bad. And there are people who also, on the other side, then counterpoint with yeah, but the halo is not something wholly unique to Blue Archive. There are many games out there that do use it as well. So this, in and of itself, in isolation, wouldn't make for a good argument. But the big difference here is that this was a game developed by people who worked on Blue Archive and who have, in past interviews, also talked about how they feel that the halo is very important to Blue Archive's branding and identity as a whole, meaning that this is not a happy coincidence where random Jeff Bro McDoodson actually came out with his AFK Journey game and decided that he was gonna just have the characters have halos because Dante's Inferno or something, and he really likes that. This was basically something that was put into the game by people who were likely keenly aware of the importance of the halo to the IP as they had said so themselves, and yet in spite of that decided to incorporate it into their game as well. Now, of course, I get it. Some people might still think that that's a little bit of a reach. Maybe we are just looking too deep into this and like letting the autism conspiracy brain take over. But when you look at some of the other information that lies out there right now, for example, they actually applied for a circle space in Comiket as a doujin circle, and for the circle's name they actually used
黒ネズミたちのパトス的弁証法
which, you know, it's like on the surface, it might seem fine. It's a little too tuny for me, kind of artsy to others perhaps. But when you translate it, the name basically stands for something along the line of the Black Mice's pathos-like dialectic. It feels a little overly pretentious when you try to translate it, but you know, there isn't really a better word to use for most of these terms in English, because the first part is literally just black mice. Pathos is pathos in the Japanese text as well, and the last part, that has a lot of room for interpretation, so we'll go into it a little more. But the issue therein lies in the meanings of these words as they exist within the Japanese language as well. Because the thing with the word black mice, for example, one of the alternative definitions of the word, aside from just, you know, referring to the little shits that gave everyone the bubonic plague many years back, is that it also refers to someone who is trying to bring harm to their boss or owner. In the term pathos, it does have multiple meanings that are largely similar. It can either refer directly to just very strong emotions, or it can also refer to the rhetorical term, which basically means to try and elicit certain emotions out of a person by trying to appeal to their feelings instead. Dialectic, which that word in and of itself has had multiple meanings across the years, which it has changed as well over time. But the most modern term that most people are typically using when they use the word dialectic nowadays is to refer to the Hegelian form, which means where a concept or the realization of the concept passes on into, is preserved and fulfilled by its opposite instead, which, you know, opposite, and then you look at the name of the studio. So, you know, that is something going on here. And knowing the fact that the person who picked all of this as a writer, you know, this all very well could be something that was fairly intentional. Like, I don't think it will ever come out at this point, to be honest, why he chose to do that. But, you know, considering every other thing that has been happening in this situation till this point, it does, you know, maybe it's me being a little conspiracy brain, but I'm starting to join the dots and see a little bit of a pattern here as well. Though that said, once again, the people who actually are involved in the situation themselves have not come out and spoken about any of this. So, we could all be very wrong. This could all just be a very weird coincidence. But at the same time, you know, there are only so many coincidences that could happen before people start to form opinions that perhaps all of this may have been done with like a full intent of maliciousness. All this is to say that this isn't just some game created by a complete different studio that wanted to create something in a similar vein. This is not the Wuthering Waves to Genshin. This is not the Azure Lane to Kankole. This would happen if at Kankole's peak, some of its key personnel decided to try and convince some of the people within the company to leave with them because they weren't being compensated enough. And then after they managed to leave the company, they set up a competitor called Warship Atsume, and they basically give their Comiket circle, which they wanted to like use to like advertise their game instead of going as a corporation, some weird cringy name like the Drying River whose edge will be surpassed or something. That's probably gonna make sense to no one at fucking all. Here's a explanation for people who actually care about this horrible joke that probably won't land. But yeah, doing all of this while at the same time simultaneously like just also trying to cause some level of degradation in the game's art during the period where they were like supposed to be about to quit. And this is why people are so mad at the current situation, because from the perspective of many people, especially people within the Korean game industry, this is tantamount in some extent to what looks like potentially like corporate sabotage as well, wherein these are people who actively harmed, allegedly, at least looking at the information that we have on hand, the company that they worked for, and then decided to go up and create a competitor to the product that they were working on before, in spite of the fact that they were some of the best rewarded people within the company itself. And within Korea, as a result, there are people who are actually unhappy about this because they are worried about how this might destabilize the state of the industry in and of itself because of the bad image it gives the entire industry if people are going to do stuff like this and if they're allowed to get away with it. And this is something that has actually also started to be picked up by the actual like news outlets within Korea as well. So even the normies are getting in on this, which is a really big problem. You know, when the normies start invading this space and like making like videos or like, yeah, shit, I'm making a video as well. But if they start to make like news articles on TV about it, you know that shit is probably going in a very bad direction, right? I don't know if it's the same in Korea, but the last time we had something like this happen within Japan, the gacha spark system was actually introduced because Monkeygate, which, you know, I see you out there, you Grand Blue players with your... Thank you for helping the rest of the world. But yeah, the last time something like that happened within Japan, it actually resulted in new restrictions and new guidelines being put in place that restricted the ways that the game industry in Japan could operate as well in the gacha space. So the fact of the matter is this is something that could have potential ramifications on the industry as a whole as a result. Because once it goes into the conventional news, it means that the olds in parliament will start hearing about it. And when they start hearing about it, then like some form of legislation might start to be pushed, and nobody typically wants that to happen. And now everyone's worried about what might happen as a result because of this. And for the Blue Archive players, obviously this feels like a really big step in the back as well. After all, Isaka-san was the person who wrote one of the best arcs in Blue Archive during his time there. And the fact that basically there was a degradation in the quality written by him towards the end, and now he basically bolted from the company and all these allegations are also coming out. Now, obviously people are going to be very mad at the fact that this game is releasing. You know, it's not at this point an issue of this game is similar to my game. It's more an issue of the guy who made this game may have willfully, you know, sabotage the thing that I love just so that he can make his own very similar thing and compete in a space where he might have a bit more of an advantage now. But yeah, this is where the situation is at right now. It is still obviously a developing situation, since now is when all of the trailers are coming out. Now is when they're releasing all of the information about the game for both Blue Archive side with Nexon Games as well as with Project KV. Neither side has really come down and made any definitive statements or, you know, any form of like rebuttals to all of the, or trying to address all of the things that are going on right now, all of the rumors, all of the investigations that people have been doing into the situation. So obviously, you know, things are still progressing. The Project KV is still trying to reach out more and more to get its name out there. And as of now, the amount of information being compiled about what is happening specifically with this entire controversy is, the document is just getting longer and longer. You know, I'm looking at it like right now just to make sure that like I'm not getting any information wrong, and I still see them typing and the information like increasing in amount. So yeah, the person who, I think it's one person who's cataloging all of it thus far, props to them, right? Stella Solaris, you're doing God's work for doing all of this. Needless to say, some of it, of course, as they have also fairly stated in the document itself, are still rumors. And so with stuff like that, they do actually explicitly say in the document that like, yeah, some of these are things from sources that are anonymous and like unverifiable at times. And so when it comes to those, the document does a good job of listing all of it down as well. Once again, the only issue I have with all of this is the fact that it's in a Word document, which personally, hey, I read all of it, okay? I'm the good boy who did, but we live in 2024. Most people find a 6-hour visual novel too long as is. You know, reading all of this might be a bit too much. Even this video I'm making might be a bit too much, so we'll end it off here for now. if there are any big updates to the situation at hand that come up along the way, then I might make an update video at the time. But yeah, for those of you who want to know what is going on, this is kind of an abridged version of all that is being compiled right now. I strongly do recommend you go read the full document. It is in the description down below if you're interested in the situation, because it is really a issue that is a lot more complex than many people are giving it credit for. That said, thank you all for watching. I'm gonna be very sleep deprived by the time this video comes out, because right now it is the 5th of September. And yeah, as you can see, this video came out really quickly because just like a lot with the visual novel locale video, I'm basically pulling a bunch of all-nighters to get this done because I am very shit at editing, and you know. So if you enjoyed this video, do feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you so much once again for watching till this point, and thank you to the very cool people over here for helping to support the channel. This thanks to you guys watching and to this very cool people helping to provide financial support that I'm able to do all this to the extent that I do. Feel free to help me out, and if we get to becoming a big channel, maybe one day I'll get fired for you know, making content about the game industry or working within it in Japan, and cause companies here don't like it. But at least if we get big enough, maybe when that finally happens, I can you know, just go indie or something instead and not have to worry as much about going completely bankrupt. But that said, I'll be heading off for now, and until next time, take care and bye-bye.